My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast, where every episode I'll bring you an interview with a member of the fishing community, and they'll be sharing their faith stories and fishing memories with you. I'm your host, Cam Steele. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. We have an amazing guest this episode. I'm really excited for y'all to hear Dr. Peter Eley, but first we've got some housekeeping things to go over. We're talking being well-rounded and learn from my mistake, the Tacticam Fisheye Action Cam on the product spotlight, and a book about loving everyone in what you're reading. So housekeeping first. If you haven't followed Brandon Mays, aka That Bass Fishing Dude, on Instagram and YouTube, make sure you go do that. Right now, since April is Autism Awareness Month, he's partnered up with Austin's Autistic Adventures and has some awesome t-shirts that he's selling. And all of the proceeds from these shirts gets donated to Austin's Autistic Adventures. And he'll be on here soon to talk about that, but in case we can't get that episode up before you run out of time to order, I wanted you to get the chance to buy yours before time ran out, so the link will be in the show notes. I was able to get the first fish of the year landed since the last episode. I decided to go back to my roots, use little bread balls on a tiny hook, and caught 21 bluegills in 48 minutes. I'm still looking for that first bass, but I've been in a bit of a slump lately, and I decided I just wanted to have some fun. I wanted to catch some fish, and it did help a little. But I'll get out there soon to chase some monsters. Just a heads up, we did have a couple moments of technical difficulties during this interview, so you will hear a couple times where Dr. Eley's voice gets distorted, and then it jumps to something, and then it jumps to later on in the interview. We did end up getting his mic back to normal, and I did my best to keep as much as possible before you just couldn't understand what was being said before I had to interrupt him. But yeah, so I think that is all of the housekeeping things I have right now. So let's take a quick break and come back with Learn From My Mistake. Whether you're a Ned Rig vet or a finesse fishing noob like me, Jade's Jigs is your source for high quality finesse jigs that raise the bar by being lead free. Using a tin bismuth alloy not only makes Jade's Jigs eco-friendly, it also makes the jig lighter so you get the same profile with less weight for the fish to feel. Check out jadesjigs.com, that's JADESJIGS.com, to see their full lineup of jigs, styles, and colors. And since you're a Faith and Fishing listener, you can save 10% on your order by using promo code FNF10 at checkout. With 30 years of experience of handcrafting lures under his belt, Mr. B of Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality spinnerbaits, buzzbaits, jigs, underspins, swim blades, and more right here in the U.S. All of his skirts are hand-tied, and all of his baits feature a baked-on powder paint, all-metal components, and only Owner and Gamakatsu hooks. All of his baits come in a variety of colors, and if you purchase a bait in the Battle Shad color, 30% of the proceeds go to the Wounded Warrior Project. To see the quality for yourself, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, to place your order and use promo code FAITHPOD1X10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. So one of the keys to being a successful bass angler is being well-rounded with a balanced set of skills. Y'all know me well enough to know that I do not fit that description at all. I am a power fisherman through and through. I used to be a spinning reel only guy when I first got into bass fishing, so I did a lot of shaky head fishing, wacky rigs and stuff like that, but I've always been more of a power fisherman. Maybe it's my ADHD that keeps me moving all the time, but either way, once I got a hold of a bait caster and got the hang of it, I all but put down the spinning rod for good. I used to be so good at casting wherever I needed with that spinning rod, but once I got the hang of the bait caster and stopped using the spinning reel for so long, I found out that I started having trouble switching between the two because I leaned so heavily towards one over the other. Not only does not being well balanced hurt you when it comes to actually using your equipment, but it can also hurt you on the water too. If you are only good with one technique, let's say it's a crankbait, what happens when they're biting topwater, or they are finicky and they need a slow presentation that sits in front of their face for a while? Well, I'll tell you what happens. You don't catch any fish. So don't make the same mistake as me. Learn a lot of techniques on both sides of the power finesse spectrum and become a well-rounded angler. All right, let's take a quick break and jump into the product spotlight. If you're looking for a photographer in and around the Raleigh, North Carolina area, the one I recommend you go with is Summer DeSalvo. Whether you're looking for family portraits, senior pictures, or business headshots, Summer's got your back. She's done family portraits for us and even a kayak photo shoot for me, and I have to say she's really fun to work with, goes above and beyond to get her shot, has a really fast turnaround time, and most importantly, takes amazing pictures. Check out her portfolio and pricing in the All Things Faith and Fishing link in the show notes, or go straight there at summerdesalvophotography.mypixiesite.com. That's summerdesalvo photography.mypixieset.com. Savior Outdoors gives me confidence that no matter what happens, what I take on the water is coming back home with me. With retrieval devices for fishing rods, bow fishing bows, action cams, and even one that can be attached to your other gear, they've got your whole arsenal covered. When one of these devices goes in the drink, it releases a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back, and the pressure-sensitive filter means that you don't have to worry about rain or dips in the water while landing a fish. At SaviorOutdoors.com, that's SAVUR Outdoors.com, you can use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% and try them for yourself. This time on the product spotlight, we're going to be talking about the Tacticam Fish Eye Action Cam. This is an action cam that you can mount on your boat, or your head, or on your shoulder. That was designed to be the perfect tool for anglers to record their fishing outings. So I guess this is a spoiler alert. Be on the lookout for some videos in the future. I've been learning the camera, and I'm going to start trying to put out some different types of video content every now and then. So the first thing I really like about this camera is that it is so super simple to use. It has 2 buttons. Literally, that's it. There is one button that you use to connect your phone and switch between the modes, and another for power and recording. So there are 3 modes. There's a loop record mode, a video mode, and a time-lapse mode. Now, I haven't used the time-lapse mode yet, so I can't speak to how well it works, but the video mode just records a continuous video like any other video camera, but the loop record mode is really awesome. You go into the app and you tell it how much time you want to set it to, and as you're fishing, it is continuously recording, and when it runs out of storage space, it overwrites the video that has not been saved. When you catch a fish or something happens that you want to keep, you hit the record button and it saves the last 3, 5, 10 minutes, however long you have set it to. They have lenses you can add to the camera for wide angle and zoom, and a cap you can run a cable through to have it run off of an external power source. Now, just FYI, those are sold separately. But yeah, it's waterproof or it's weatherproof if you're running that external power. It is shock resistant, making it really durable. Like I mentioned earlier, it does have an app that you can use to see the camera's view while it's not recording and see the recordings. I've used earlier GoPro models, and this is certainly a huge step up from that. But I can't speak to any of the newer models because I don't have any of those. Overall, this camera ticks all of the boxes for me, and I am looking forward to making some really awesome videos with it. But seriously, video editing really isn't my thing, so y'all bear with me. The videos won't be up tomorrow. Alright, so that takes care of the product spotlight. Now it's time for What You're Reading. What You Reading, presented by Quail Ridge Books, Raleigh, North Carolina's trusted community bookstore. This time on What You're Reading, we're going to be talking about Everybody Always, written by Bob Goff and published by Thomas Nelson. But first, as always, what you're reading is brought to you by Quail Ridge Books. Now you know about the selection. By now you know about the customer service, the website, the fact that right now you can get free shipping, and we talked about events last time. Well, I want to let you know that April 30th is Independent Bookstore Day. We're going to be doing all kinds of fun things and drawings going on all day in the store. And February 29th through Monday, May 2nd, we are also going to have our Readers Club sale. Now, our Readers Club is our discount program where for $15 a year you get 10% off of almost everything in the store, 20% off of current hardcover New York Times bestsellers, and during Readers Club sales, all members get 20% off. Senior citizens and educators get free memberships. So go over to quailridgebooks.com/faithnfishn to sign up. Okay, let's talk about Everybody Always. First, let me say that Bob Goff is one of my favorite pastor authors. He is super relatable, a fantastic storyteller, and makes the gospel accessible in a way that few can. One thing he really focuses on in a lot of his books is love. As Christians, we are charged with this impossible task of loving everyone. Well, we all fail. I would say we all fail daily, but in reality, it's more than once a day, so it's more than daily. But yeah, so here lately, especially, Christians aren't really known as loving people anymore. So what does loving everyone look like? That's what Everybody Always is all about. Goff uses that relatable storytelling of his to give examples of the times that he has succeeded in loving people, the times he wasn't so successful, and what he has learned about loving everybody. Goff's writing makes this a really easy book to digest and consume quickly, so it ends up being the perfect book to take traveling. Get your copy at quailridgebooks.com/faithnfishn. Now it's time to get Dr. Eley introduced. Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle in Greensboro, North Carolina offers a wide range of products and services designed to help protect the environment and enhance the time people spend enjoying the outdoors. With an expansive year-round inventory of kayaks, SUPs, bikes, kayak fishing accessories, paddling clothing, biking accessories, and more, Get Outdoors has established itself as one of the top paddle sports and biking shops in the Southeast. They also offer a wide range of kayak safety and technique courses to get you comfortable in your new boat. They'll even get it rigged up for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check them out at shopgetoutdoors.com. All right, this time on the podcast, I've got someone I'm really excited to introduce. I've got the Associate Dean at Fayetteville State University. He is Professor of Mathematics Education. He's the pastor at Safehouse Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. He's a researcher focusing on equity and intersectionality. He's a husband. He's a father. He is a kayak fisherman, Mr. Peter Eley. And I just realized now that I did not ask to make sure I was pronouncing that name right. So he is going to let me know whenever he gets in here. And I guess I should say that it's Dr. Peter Eley, correct?
You're correct, and you said it correctly. So bravo and big ups to you, as they would say.
Absolutely, man. Well, go ahead, introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us who Peter Eley is.
Man, Peter Eley is just blessed and doing his best to be a servant to all he meets. I'm just a lover of people. I'm very passionate about everything I do. I have one switch that's all the way on. So if I'm with you, I'm with you. If I'm not, I'm not. And as I tell people, I get high off life, man. I just get high. I get my joy out of being able to help people and being able to help people reach their full potential and reach their level. And just loving, Christ and helping others to get there and enjoying the trip. I'm saved. I ain't born. Is what I tell people. Some believe, because you choose to walk the righteous path, that this is a boring life. And I tell my church all the time, I spend all my time to focus on all the things he told me I could do. And there's so many things that he told me I could do. I don't have time to worry about the handful he told me I could.
That's awesome. All right, man. So you have quite a list of things that you do. So I want to dive in to your roles in all of the things that you have going on. But let's start with your roles at Fayetteville State University. Um, so let's start with Associate Dean. So I did not know. I'll go ahead and give everybody some background on me. I have an associate's degree from a community college, and I was never involved in any of the behind the scenes stuff or the leadership of the college or anything like that. All of that was completely foreign to me. So I'll let you explain it to my listeners in case anybody is as ignorant on that subject as I am.
Okay. So believe it or not, I was just like you. I was very ignorant to a lot of these things. A lot of these things I actually got exposed to in college. I was fortunate. I'm one of those ones. Obviously, I'm an outgoing person. I'm a people person. And while I was there in college, for some reason, I got this odd notion that I wanted to run for student government president. And I did it. I ran, and I actually was fortunate enough to win. And by winning, what they did, that was a pivotal point in my life, in that those leaders there really poured into me to really invested in me as a student. They helped me be a student leader. So I got sent to a lot of different leadership camps all across this country. I remember we was at basically almost like a wilderness camp in the middle of Champaign, Illinois. Had never been on an airplane before. I'm a country boy. I grew up in Henderson, North Carolina, right off 85, home of Car Lake. Yeah, that's my home lake. So that's what I did. And to put me on a plane, sent me out to Chicago in a big mansion in the middle of the woods, and taught me about myself and others and how to relate to one another, others. So leaders can, people often say leaders are born. No, I do believe that they can be trained. Some people may have the wiring already put in, and others you have to put the wiring in, but they'll work just the same. So I like to think I'm one of those ones that, I had some passion there, but the wiring was definitely put in. And as a part of that, I got to see the leadership part. So I got to hang out a lot with our college president, got to go to these meetings and all these kind of things with him. Never even thought about it, maybe potentially being a career or doing something like that. And I saw what he did, and I was like, I want to do that. So for me to do what he was doing, I had to do what he did. And so I'm not there. I'm not a college president or nothing, yet, if that's God's will for me. But I'm moving along that trajectory. And that's kind of how I got started in that. So I started, with him, learning it behind the scenes. So what happened is there are some people who go directly to school just to do that. And then there's others who get trained into it. Because I started out as a teacher or a professor. So I actually started out as a middle school teacher. I taught middle school mathematics in my hometown, at a middle school there. And then I went on and I taught at the high school, and I coached football there at the high school at South Granville High School in Creedmoor, North Carolina, right outside of Durham. And then I was fortunate enough, I left there and started working at St. Augustine's College there in Raleigh, North Carolina. Worked there at I think it's St. Augustine's University now, but it was college when I was there. Fortunate enough to went on to Winston-Salem State. And I worked at Winston-Salem State for 5 years while I was working on my doctorate degree. And when I got to my doctorate degree, I was offered an amazing opportunity to go down to Fayetteville State. And I started there as an instructor and worked my way up from instructor to assistant professor, then from assistant professor to a tenured associate, and from a tenured associate to now professor. Then I was a department chair, and now from a department chair to an associate dean. So as I tell people, I'm one of those ones that, how some people have that story of, they was a janitor, now they're the CEO. That's kind of my trajectory. I've done a little bit of everything. I've been on both sides of it. So that journey has been interesting, but I think it keeps me grounded. But I also know I can really relate to almost everybody on the campus, because at some point I've been where you've been, or I've done some of the things you've done. So therefore, I understand that. So I do believe when my opportunity comes, that I'll be able to be a lot stronger leader, because I will be talking from a position of I know how it feels to be where you are versus I'm trying to figure out where you are.
Absolutely. And so you've gone from middle school all the way up to college. So I'm curious to find out what's your favorite age to work with.
Middle school, by far. The middle school kids are they think they're grown, but they know they're quite not grown. So at that point, you still could kind of get through to them, right, and get some things. By the time you got elementary, they just too young. They they really need it. High school, they think they're grown, so you can't really tell them nothing. That middle school is the soft spot. You can do a lot of cool things with them. They still think you're kind of cool at that point before they get to. So that 6th, 7th, 8th grade, you still can kind of, by the time that 9th grade part kick in, it's different.
Absolutely. I've worked as a youth pastor before, and I've worked with youth for a long time and all different kinds of roles and positions. And I always say that middle school is my favorite age to work with, and everybody always looks at me like I am crazy whenever I say that. But I'm glad to know that there's at least one other person out there who feels the same way I do.
But see, what that tells me about them is that they never spend any significant time around. That's what that tells me, because you'll know quickly. You got to put a pacifier in this one's mouth all the time, and this one you got to put a GPS on to find out where they are. They in the middle, they just do just enough and just enough. You know what I mean? You ain't got to change them, but you got to know you got to take them somewhere to go. You ain't got to feed them, but you got to take them somewhere so they can feed themselves. It's just enough of each one. They let you love on them a little bit, but then they push back. So okay, they met that. You met your quota for the day, and it was just a real fun time. And it's really at that point that you really can impress a student, because we even know from research wise that how they start at 9th grade is going to determine what they're going to do pretty much in high school. And I can already show you what they do. How they start at 9th grade can almost determine the trajectory for pretty much the rest of their life. It's not in stone, but on average, we can tell you that.
That's very interesting. I would love to kind of go back and look at my 9th grade year to see what it was that we could learn from that. But absolutely. So you are in a teaching role at the college still, professor of mathematics education. So is that course or that series of courses, or however it is that kind of teaching somebody how to teach math? Is that how that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the difference between math and math education, mathematicians are working more on math theories and this kind of thing. And math educators, we're working more on the learning side. How do I teach somebody how to teach this? So I tell people all the time, there are a lot of brilliant people in the world, but it's not a lot of people who can tell you what they know though. And we've all met those people like, man, this guy's just brilliant. But you ask him how you do that, he can't tell you. So it's like, so I'm that person who could, I've been blessed to, to know what they do, and I'm the translator and to be able to tell you, okay, this is what they really mean by this. And this is how you want to look at this. And for me, it's part of my gifting to be able to take complex things and be able to bring them down to layman's terms. And, I talk in a lot of analogies and this kind of thing. It just kind of comes natural to me. Be honest, I don't have to really work at it. It's just one of those things for me.
That's awesome. And so are you, have you always been like a math person, or was that something that like you kind of fell into as you got older?
I would say yes. And I'm going to tell you why. My mother was my first math teacher. I remember my mom, back in the day, I grew up in church. I'm a church baby. I was in the church. My grandpa was a bishop, so I don't know nothing but church, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't run away from that. It's kept me from a lot of stuff. Okay. Yeah. So at Christmas time, our church, they used to give these little bags away to all the kids at Christmas. And back then, all the candy wasn't individually wrapped. So they used to put the candy together and it used to all stick together. So you have like orange and apples and you had this all hard candy. And as a kid, we would want that candy, and my mom used to take it all and put it in this one bowl because I'm the oldest of 5. And for reward, we would get this candy. So she used to teach me math, and I would get rewarded, with the candy, and that's how I learned math. So my mom was my first math teacher. I was told that my grandfather was very good in math, so maybe it's in the bloodline. And so I always it came fairly easy to me, and it kind of always, just kept following that path. I mean, I took calculus in high school. I ain't gonna say and tell you I did well in it. I mean, I did good enough to get out. But I did take it in high school. I've never made all A's. I've never got a 4.0, no time in college. I do have a lot of C's. There's plenty of C's on my transcript. So I want this to be inspiration to somebody else. You can be a C student too, as George Bush said, hey, and be president of the United States. And I'm telling you, you can be a C student too and get a PhD and do well. In fact, what I found is the classes I got C's in are the ones I actually learned the stuff in. So I want that to, somebody who got a lot of C's out there, I want you to get A's, but you getting a C is not the end of the work. I know some people make this thing like the person got a doctorate, they got, they super smart. No, it's people who just didn't quit. That's what it is. So that's that question, I guess, in a nutshell. I like to think I kind of have been, but I ain't going to say I focused on it until about midway in college because I didn't even start out as a math major. I started out as a computer scientist.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I never liked math until I took a physics class. And then it was math, but there was a reason I was doing it. So I like math now. I've never gone into any of the advanced stuff like calculus or anything like that. I've done trigonometry and algebra, and those were great. I hate geometry with a passion, but
so geometry is all about proof. So if you want to be a great lawyer, man, get a math major. It's about logic and proof. It's like you got this piece. It's like, think about geometry. It's like a big puzzle, and these are the definitions, and you just need to know how they all fit together. I got this piece. So if I got this piece, what's the next thing I can do? Oh, well, this piece relates to this piece. It's all about definition and how you put the definitions together. If this is equal to this, what else is equal to this? Oh, by definition, this equals that part. Okay, now you put these two together. So it has a logical order to it. So it's more of a, and the reason why geometry is important is because it teaches you how to think logically.
That's awesome.
So everything is evidence, right? You got to have evidence to go to the next step. And that's what geometry teaches you. So a lot of people, one of the things I think I've seen to say, about the internet is that, especially, all these different kind of platforms, that people can just say whatever they want to say and don't have to prove anything. And that's why people struggle with those kind of, because people usually just say whatever they want to say and not having to have some support and evidence for it.
Absolutely. Whew. All right. Let's jump into your career as a pastor. I don't even know where you find the time to be able to do it, but how long have you been pastoring?
So I've been pastoring here in Greensboro for 5 years. I got ordained back in, was it 2000? I want to say about 2008. I got to go look. 2008, but like I said, I've been in ministry, my entire life. But like I said, I didn't officially get ordained until like 2008, and then we stepped out on faith and started a church in 2018. So we have a small ministry here in Greensboro that we started really actually on social media. When Facebook Live first came out, I just started every morning was doing a little prayer and a podcast, much like we're doing now. And so that prayer and the podcast was like we're doing now. It would be recording it and doing the video at the same time. And it just kept growing. And to the point that we started meeting together as a church, and then it led from there to where we are now as the Safehouse Church in Greensboro. So as you said, how you find time, we keep God first. So, early in the morning, you get up, you do what you got to do and do those things. So it's a natural progression. Like I said, I grew up in the church. So it wasn't that I was fortunate enough, since I grew up in the church, this was always part of what I did. versus the other way around. Some people like, oh, now I had to find time to do this, or because now this is a new thing to me. No, it was already incorporated into what I did. So it was just, if it wasn't there, it would be more like, okay, something's missing.
That's awesome. And so I also definitely wanted to touch on your research. One of the things about, math is it kind of lends itself to that researcher mentality. And so are you researching just as kind of a hobby, or are you researching to hopefully get published, or what kind of research do you do?
So I definitely don't research as a hobby. It's part of the job as a professor. So this is how you keep your job. And I am published. So feel free to Google my name, read some of my work. I have several, my dissertation is out there online. My master's thesis is out there online. Several articles and journal articles that are written out there online. I have many commentaries out there online. So I've been blessed to have been established as a expert in this area. You can go to my website, drpetereley.com, and you can see a list of other things and accomplishments that I have there. In 2020, I won the prestigious Board of Governors Awards for excellence in teaching through the UNC system. They only pick 16 people to get that award. I got that award. Give me a big medallion, so I feel like I won the Olympics. I thought about it, I would have brought it out. This big bronze medallion, and they gave me a check for $13,000, so that wasn't bad either. And that's actually how I bought my kayak. That's how I got into kayak fishing. Nice segue, right? Literally, I bought my first kayak with some of that money. Because I was like, why can I reward myself? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a kayak. But we'll get to that story, how I got into kayaking.
Absolutely. So before we jump into that, I definitely want to kind of talk about what it is that you're researching.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
So I research equity. I know equity is a buzzword now, but I was doing this before it became very popular. I do equity in tracking, though. Most of you, if you remember when you was in high school, you start out in math, you would take say algebra 1, then you go from algebra 1 to geometry, algebra 2, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how do you get into those classes? They have policies and rules why you can get into those classes. We know, as I stated on earlier, if you don't get in certain classes, I know you're not going to probably be an engineer. I know you're probably not going to do something in STEM. And we always have this argument about getting more people in STEM. Regardless of the color, we need more people in STEM. And so what we're able to go back and trace is that starts with some of the rules and how people get into these courses. So I was able to look at tracking to see how people get into the courses they get into. And certain groups of people were not being allowed into those courses. In some areas it's based on race. Some areas is based on classism. Some areas is based on whose parents are the most vocal. And because because education is not a federal issue, it's a state's issue. Most people think the federal government controls education. They don't. Your state legislator does, and your local school boards really do. That's where the power is. It's not really in the president's office. He has really, really little power on that. The Secretary of Education does not have a lot of power over education. Hear me well. Those people in your local community are the ones who are making your education. So if your education is not what you want to be, them the ones you need to talk to, because they have the power, because the states are allowed to do whatever it is that they want to do for their state. And we only united under the umbrella of the federal government in the sense that they make recommendations. Now, how they make their recommendations is they make it with green. If you do what we ask you to do, we'll give you this money. So that's why you see the fight, especially in North Carolina. Oh, we're not taking this money. That was what that was about. Because if they take the money, then you have to take the recommendations. So they entice you when you know you need money. It's like, okay, how do we fill this financial windfall gap we got? Well, we can get the government's money and we just got to do this part. Okay. And then that's when it starts, playing that devil's advocate piece. Okay, how much of this we can do, or what's the bare minimum of this we can do, and get the money from Uncle Sam, and he feels that he's got his part, but we also fill the gap for our citizens. So it's a cat and mouse game back and forth. So I look at a lot of those policies and how those things come to play. And believe it or not, a lot of these policies are just based on people just saying, oh, I just want to do this. And that's what makes them very dangerous. And I think people mean well, but sometimes they don't have the, exposure. But then it comes down to this thing, oh, here come these people from the city and the colleges coming over here to tell us what to do, and social engineering and all this kind of stuff. And that's when you get into that, Farmer Joe, he didn't graduate from high school or college, but he wants to go in there and tell everybody else how to teach their kids, because he believes that these things are right. And his pockets are deep enough for him to say, because that's how he got there, right? Because it costs money to get elected. We know that. So he's on the board. It didn't matter if he got a college degree or he's went to high school and he graduated, whatever. He's on the board and he's making the rules. And so that's where you get into a lot of these kind of things. And people ask, well, how do we get these weird kind of policies and this and that? Like this whole thing of CRT, the critical race theory. They don't, when people always talk about how they teach it in school and all that. No, they don't. Most people still can't tell you what critical race theory even is, right? Because it's not that. It was something totally different, but somebody heard it as a buzzword and they took it and they ran with it. And now, it's another thing now. Everybody, oh, they teaching critical race theory. What is it? You don't even know what it is. So how are you going to say, they teaching? So we see a lot of that kind of thing. So I do a lot of that, educating people, trying to help them understand, look, this is what it is. And once you understand this, then maybe we can have a more intelligent conversation, about these kind of things. So I spend a lot of time just educating the general public on things and policies and say, okay, this is what you might want to do, and here's why, but that's your decision. And that's one thing I'm big on, even in my church and salvation. God has always given us one thing. He's given us the right to choose, no matter in any and every situation. He's always giving you the right to choose. I may not like your choices. Your choices might be contrary to his word, but it was still your choice. And everywhere in the Bible, you always have a choice. And then, even he told him, he said, choose you this day who you going to serve. He said, for me and my house, we choosing to serve the Lord. It's your choice. And even in these other things, all these things are your choice. So I always tell people, I don't ever want to take away anybody's ability to choose. That's when I think I violated you.
Man, this is good stuff. But yeah, so let's take that segue that you're talking about. So you get this money, the award, and you decide to buy a kayak. Now, were you already fishing at that time, or is this something that was relatively new?
Man, I've been a fisherman, country boy, outdoor boy my whole life, man. I deer hunt, I bow hunt, bear hunt. I do them all. Turkeys, I have a little trophy room here. I got fish, I got turkeys, I got deer. And actually, not since I've been in the kayak fishing, I've really cut hunting to a minimum. I didn't even go at all last year. Can't believe that. I didn't go at all. Because I guess catch and release now has made me just change my mind about shooting deer. I'm being honest. I know some people are like, you got to be kidding me, man. It's just something different now. I mean, because I can see this and do it again another day. And now if we got to eat, I'm going to do what I got to do. But I know I'm blessed and I don't need to do it. So I guess I really turned into a trophy hunter for sure now. And even then, it's kind of like, oh, man, it's just so pretty. And I'm just taking in the moment. So as you get older, things start to change, man. Then I'm thinking about that drag and all that stuff. If you ever drove, 150-pound dead weight deer, even after you field dress it, man, you start changing your mind on some stuff. It's like, man, do I really want to shoot this? If it ain't, I always tell them, I say, if it ain't got a drop time on his head, I'm probably not going to pull the trigger. I got to see it. It was cool. Now bow hunting is a little different for me because I get that close, I might have to pull it because, you get a handful of shots. But, the fishing thing, I've always been fishing my whole life. Been growing up in the country. I didn't have any guns, so hunting was something I got into more of as an adult, not because I didn't want to, but I just couldn't afford to. My father, we didn't have firearms in our home. BB guns was, Daisy, single action. That was all I that was the closest we was going to get. But fishing, it was easy to get, fishing reels and that thing. And we had a pond that was not far from the house. So I found myself, I've always been a reader. And my mom would take us to the library in the summers, and I would go in there and check out all the fishing books. So I taught myself how to fish. And I made all kinds of baits and all kinds of things for catfish. And that's really what I was doing. Was go bassing, but a lot of time we spent a lot of time catching catfish and doing that kind of thing. So fishing was always in my purview, but the kayak fishing was completely new to me. And what happened was we moved to our home here in Summerfield back in 2019, right before the pandemic started, and we was getting our alarm put in our house. And the guy from the alarm company, I can't remember his name now. He's gonna kill me because he fished out of CKA. Man, what is his Ryan? What is Ryan's last name? But anyway, Ryan was my CPI representative that was putting the alarm in my house, and he saw I had all these catfishing reels over in the corner. And he's like, "Oh, you fish?" And we got to talking about fishing. He was like, "Yeah, I'm a kayak fisher. We got these trails." And he was telling me about the kayaks, and they cost $6,000-$7,000 by the time you do all this stuff. And he really had me going. I was like, you know what? I might want to try that one day. And he was encouraging, "Oh, you should try it." Yeah. And it went from there. Didn't think nothing about it. Pandemic happens. We're out, and but I win this award. So I won that award at like around this time, April. So I got that check about mid-April and went out and said, I'm going to go to buy a kayak. Went over to Sportsman Warehouse in Greensboro and bought a Lost Creek pedal drive kayak for like $1,100. That was like the only one they had in the store. I saw a guy online. It was like a 10-footer. Went out to a pond here in the neighborhood. First time I ever seen a Ned rig. I think I saw Brian Latimer was selling them Z-Man. I said, what is that? Threw a Ned rig. I think the first time I threw it, the first or second time I threw it, hung a fish, fought with him 8 minutes. I said, man, this got to be a catfish. Man, I caught like a 9-pound bass. I got a picture of it. So I got a video. Now, I kid you not. I didn't even know fish was like that in that lake. We just moved to the neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm like, here I am putting this kayak in there. Going, man, just messing around. And it was, I'll never forget, it was July the 4th. I caught it on July the 3rd. In 90-degree weather, I caught him off a Ned rig, and it was ridiculous. And I was like, oh my God. It was almost the biggest fish in my life. I don't think it was the biggest, but it was next to the biggest, as far as bass. And I was sold on the kayak from that point. And so at this point, I'm in this kayak every day because it's the pandemic, it's the summer, kids are home. Wife's here, mother-in-law, stays with me. So I'm gone. I am to the point that I wore out the steering mechanism on it. The cables in it broke. So I'm trying to find the cables, it's off-brand kayak, and I go over to Will and Get Outdoors. So it was kind of cool that you played that before. And I go there, I say, hey, can you fix this? And he's like, well, it may take this and that. We really don't do this kind of thing, but we so I'm like, okay. So then I'm looking around and he has all these other kayaks in there. And he was like, oh yeah, we can't keep them in the store right now. People buying them left and right. And I walk over and he has the native. The native Slayer Max. He said, yeah, that's brand new. I just took that out of the box. And I went over there and I looked at it and I stepped in it. And he said, yeah, that'll be gone by the end of the day. And I said, yep, because it's gone right now. So 100% impulse buy. I buy a Slayer Max out from Will over at Get Outdoors. And that was how I started kayak fishing. And my first tournament was I fished with Vinny in Queen City in his August tournament for the charity, the Emerald charity that his wife does for the school that she runs. And I was like, okay, it's a charity event. It'll be level playing field because everybody's got to use the baits that they give you, which I thought was unique. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and see what happens. And that was my first time. The first time I ever stepped foot in the boat was in a tournament on Lake Wiley down there with Vinny at Queen City, man. So after that, I've been hooked ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. So you're fishing. Are you still fishing mostly Queen City or CKA or CCKF? Who all are you fishing with?
I do all of them, man. I know. You're like, how do you find time, man? I have a great wife. No, I really do try to play because that's my release, man. I spend a lot of time. That's the one time I can get on the water. I typically don't answer my phone. anything. So that's the time I get to decompress. So you asked about how I do all these things I do. That is really my time to decompress, is just when I'm there. And I find it to be, my release. Some people, I used to be a weightlifter, but the pandemic again kind of took that away from me. So it was what else could I do? And I got back into fishing like I did when I was younger, man. And it's just kind of, taking off. So yes, I fish all three clubs, but I think membership wise right now, I was fortunate enough. I fished the Queen City this year for free. I won a free year membership. So I've been fishing Queen City for free all this year. And but then I am a paid member of CCKF. And I did fairly well. I made it to the Tournament of Champions in that one last year. So I got to go back because I left some on the board last year over there. I could have pulled it out. It was my fault. And then CKF, I do fish them, great guys in there, Henry, but Jagan is my guy. Love me some Henry and getting to know the other guys, Byron and then of course Ryan and Don Trail. So just a good group of guys, and I really fish a lot with them when they come to, of course, Carl Lake. That's my lake, and they do the combine when we do North Carolina versus Virginia, and Virginia's been spanking us pretty good the last couple of times, so we got to figure that out.
For sure. Yeah, this is my first year doing any of it. So, okay. And of course, my first tournament, my first in-person tournament is the Sharon Harris event, and I went on Saturday. Now I'm in a paddle kayak.
Ooh, we got to fix that. We got to get Will to hook you up, man. Oh goodness.
All the pedal kayaks are too heavy. I car top.
Oh no, I got a friend of mine here that I met, and that's the thing about kayak fishing. You meet so many people on the water. For sure. I kid you not. Guy who's fishing in CCKF now with us, Storm and I, and his first tournament was with you. And I told Storm I was not going out there, buddy. Storm is down the street from me, and I met Storm while I was in my kayak at the lake up the street. He was out there fishing on the pier. He got to talking to me. We traded numbers. He works at the Harris Teeter down the street from me. And so we just kind of hit it off like that. Next thing I know, Storm went and bought him a native and he puts it on top of his car.
Wow.
So that's no excuse. You can get it. If Storm can get that Slayer Max on top of his Volvo, you can get it on top of your car. But yeah, he does. And so like I said, that's the thing. Once you get there, and we've done some other creative things too. It's like, okay, how can we stack two kayaks? Dave Hart and I did that one time. We went out to where was that place? Canes Creek, out in between Chapel Hill. Great little fishing hole. Hope I ain't giving away too many secrets. But Dave and I went out there because it's one of those things. It's a lottery. You have to put in for the lottery. And Dave, I don't think he ever been. And I was like, you need to go with me if you're gonna be off. And he was off. I won the lottery that week, and you could take somebody with you. And Dave and I went out there, and it was like, you couldn't pull a trailer. So him and I we stopped on the side of the road, and he left his car at a grocery store, and we took kayaks. And I said, man, you can put it on top of my kayak. I don't care. So we took everything off the kayaks and laid them face to face, and then strapped them down, put the stuff in the back of my truck, and drove. Because you can't pull a trailer in there, and drove in there. Guy cleared us, we went in there, man. We had a great time, man. We caught about 40 bass that day.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah. So I definitely, this is going to be a long podcast, I can tell. But I definitely want to make sure that we get a chance to touch on your faith story too. So kind of give us an idea of what it is that you believe and how you came to believe that.
So as I was saying earlier, I grew up in the church. I've been in church, all my life, but didn't really take my faith seriously until I was about 15. I believe that Jesus died and Jesus is coming back. He rose and he's coming back again. I believe in the fivefold ministry. By most people say, I'll be Pentecostal, but I claim apostolic, that we follow the teachings of the apostles. I know there's little nuances between those for some people, but I don't keep that. If you believe in death, burial, and resurrection, then we can have a conversation. The rest of that's just, doctrine that we may have. I do believe in being baptized in the name of Jesus. I do believe in filling with the gift of the Holy Ghost as this tongues as utterance. But I also believe he said that the fruits would follow them. So, you can be speaking in tongues and still be a devil. But at the same time, I want to see what you're doing. How you treat people. Do you treat people right? So I want to see that work. Faith without works is dead. So that's what I believe, in a nutshell. I do believe in holiness. We try to live a clean life. I don't drink, no smoke. I've never done it anyway. So not a perfect man. I've had my share of faults and things. Struggled in college, like most young people at that time. Not that I was just a heathen or whatever. But, you wanted to explore and see some things and do some things. So I went through that stage like everybody else, but God kept me. Met my wife pretty much as soon as I got out of college. We got engaged, got married, and this year we'll be 20 years in October. So, and she's of the faith, and that was very important to me. It was always taught, don't be unequally yoked. So one of the things that were key to me in marriage was I had to find somebody who believed exactly the way I believe. Because what happens is, and it's happened in our marriage, and it happens in others, marriages and things break down. Things happen. But she believed this way, and I knew I believed this way, so we had nowhere else. When we got down to that point, it got down to our faith, and we both knew what we believed, so then it was nothing but to go back up from there. And we've had, over 20 years now, we've had those times, we had our ups and downs. Life has happened to us in various, formats. But, we got to that point. It's like, I know she believed this and I believe this. So now we got to figure it out and stick in here and keep going. And so here it is 19 and a half years later. She's still in here with me. So, and I'm grateful. So that would be, my, faith story in a nutshell of how I started. So like I said, my faith has been a progression. Like I said, the Bible talks about going from milk to meat, and it's definitely been a walk and a perfecting thing. As Paul said, I die daily. I continue to die daily. There's things I'm always learning, and I'm always changing and growing. And prayer changes things, and prayer is working on me and working on my family, and taking us to that level. So for my faith, that's kind of where I would be in there and how I am where I am now. And even now, as things happen, around us, on our job. I mean, in our churches. I was for a while. I learned a lot. I grew up in a mainly African American church, but then when I came to Winston, I was in a mixed race church, and that was a very interesting situation for me, and I learned a lot from that. And now, like I said, my church is, it's open. It's not even my church; it's God's church, and it's open whosoever will. But we have a tendency to to attract who you are. So it is what it is, and that's where we go. So which I find it's interesting that most of my congregation are people, very educated people, which I guess as I tell people, people think that faith was for the poor because they think, oh, that's poor people faith. No, I know a lot of people in high places that believe exactly what we believe. It's just that things are a little different, and I believe that God has called some modern day Josephs, some modern day Daniels, who are on these levels, who speak to these people, and they have to have some integrity. Because I'm telling you, I see a lot of stuff a lot of times that ain't right, and somebody's got to stand up and say something about it. And you're gonna take some blows, you're gonna take some slack for it, but you got to trust and know at the end of the day that God is gonna protect you. And I'm here to say that I've caught some blows, but He's protecting me every single time. And even when it didn't feel like it was, man, if I can go into detail some things, you'll be like, whoa, I can't believe that even happened. I had some crazy stuff happen, man. And I'm here to tell you today that integrity, time and time again, really who you are. You don't really know who you are until that stuff, as they used to say in the streets, when it hits the fan, you'll find. And, and every couple of years or whatever, God has a way of sending something my way to test my integrity. And it's like, oh, I could have said this, or I could have did this, and maybe nobody finds out, but I know. And because of the God that lives inside of me, having to live with myself and do that, I don't think I could do it. So I'm one of those ones I done told on myself. Yeah, but that would be my faith walk. And like I said, I struggle like everybody else. I'm not, perfect, and I never claim perfection, but I do believe that, we can walk this together, and that's why it's important that we strengthen one another, and we hang out with one another and help each other. Because sometimes, the Bible says, iron sharpens iron. And one of the things about iron sharpening iron is this causes, most people don't think about it, but it causes friction. And what happens with friction is that as these things are rubbing each other, the reason they sharpen each other is because they knock spurs off each other.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you. You take that hurts to knock some stuff off, and that's why you have that friction. But because we're committed to staying in there, at the end of the day, we end up being sharper for it when we go out to do what we got to do. So I do believe in healthy debate, healthy discussion. But at the end of the day, it's all love.
There were a few things that you said that I'm definitely going to be listening to again and taking notes. But one thing that really stood out to me, you said several times, die daily, that you die daily. If we've got anybody who's listening who isn't really familiar with what that phrase means, I call it the Christianese. If anybody isn't fluent in Christianese and doesn't quite know what that one means, can you kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, die daily would be that, as Paul said, that, I know there's things that I've done that was contrary to the word of God, whether it was intentional or unintentional, because there's sometimes things that you do unintentional that you still held accountable for. If you broke the law, if you was riding down the street and you was going faster than you should have been going, you might not have known the speed limit, but that didn't mean the man might not give you a ticket, because your negligence didn't mean that you get to walk away from this. And because of that, I have to ask God for forgiveness daily. I mean, it's something I even could have thought of that would have been contrary to the word that could have got me in trouble that led to something else. So when I say die daily, is dying to those things and myself. I'm in this body, so I'm constantly fighting my self-will all the time. As they said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, right? So there's things that my body wants to do, there's things that my mind wants to do, there's things that my mouth want to say, but I have to, war against that, because I always have a choice. I can choose to say it or choose not to say it. I can choose to do it or not to do it. And some days, I'm gonna be honest, some days the body wins. And this is why we fast, and this is why we die daily, because I have to keep killing this guy because he keeps coming back. He's like Freddy Krueger. He just won't go away. So, and that's the war. You hear people talk about the war inside of them, or the silent war. That's the war. You warn against yourself all the time. When I would do good, evil's always around, right? So, and we see many, many examples about it, all the time throughout the Bible, where they talk about, this is what I want to do. Even, Jesus fought. He said, what? In the Garden of Gethsemane, if I don't have to, please take this cup. I don't want to die like this. But nonetheless, not my will, but your will. What did he do? He died to himself right there. Not my will. Because what I want to do is, I don't want to die. In fact, I want to go here and just start slinging tables and all this stuff, right? Like he did one time. But he had to go, so, and not that Jesus sinned. Don't get me wrong, because he didn't sin. He said he angered, but he sinned not, right? So you can get upset, but, don't go do something crazy after that. I ain't going to take that shot I was going to take. But anyway, so I was going to say Will Smith, but we start.
Exactly where you're going with that.
It's too easy. But so we can have fun. But nonetheless, that's what I mean by, die daily. So the things that you struggle with, we all struggle with them. But the difference is that I have the Holy Ghost to lead and guide me. And if I choose to listen, that's the difference. It's like, who do you adhere to? He said, no man can serve two masters, both mammon and the world. You can't choose two masters. You got to have one or the other. And so some days I chose the other, but it didn't mean he didn't let me. It didn't mean that, I can't come back. I just want to get back in line. So it's a constantly relining yourself. I'll give you this analogy and I'll shut up. This thing of, I have this thing personally that I weigh myself every day because I know my weight can get out of control because sometimes I'm undisciplined in that area of my life. So I have to do it every day because when I weigh myself, what I find out is, okay, oh, I'm a little light today. I can eat a little bit today. Or, oh, I'm a little heavy. I got to watch it. No sodas today. No Mellow Yellow, no Mountain Dew, whatever, right? So I can make sure, so when I get back on the scale the next time, I'm back in line. Okay, I'm back where I should be. Think about your spiritual walk with Christ like that. You always measuring yourself. And the more you measure yourself, the more aware you are. And the more aware you are, then hopefully the better decisions you can make. So the problem is when you're not measuring yourself for like weeks at a time. So you always see that one thing on the church, on the church mantra that says, without prayer for 1 week makes 1 week. Week, WEEK, WEAK. So it makes 1 week immediate week because you're not being able to measure up because it's so easy to get off. It doesn't take patience.
Where were we?
Oh, you were asking me about Eley.
You were talking about the church mantra. Was the last thing that I got.
Oh, you asked me about dying daily. So
Right.
I was talking, dying daily, how I measure myself every single day. So that's what the dying daily is. It's like, okay, I need to kill this off today. Or I need to make sure I'm not doing this today. So it's that constantly measuring back and forth. That's how I would say it, that I'm very conscious of everything I'm doing.
Absolutely. All right, man. So I can't let you come on to the Faith and Fishing podcast without asking you a few questions. There are some that we ask every guest, and my favorite question of the whole podcast is always, what fishing story or memory means the most to you?
I don't have any that stick out like this was the most, but I have a group of them. I guess if I had to pick one, I would say a trip where we didn't catch any fish. It was the fact that I was with my family. I have two brothers that are younger. I'm the oldest. They both have boats. I got the kayak. They got boats. And on the 4th of July, or around my father's birthday, we used to get out. My brother has a pontoon. We go out down Car Lake, and we stay there all night. The entire night. We go out about 8, 9 o'clock, and we come back in the next morning about 10 o'clock. And the last time we did it, man, we did not catch a single fish the entire night. That's a long time to be on the water without catching the fish. But we didn't catch a fish the entire night. But it was the fact that I was with my father, and I'm blessed to have my father. He's still alive. And then to be with my two brothers. Fishing is a family affair for us. And so I guess that would be, my favorite one. But I do have a unique one in that I typically, this particular Sunday, I got to fish, and I was fishing after church, and was able to go after church and fish, and was fishing in the little farm pond with my wife's cousin, and throwing a little rubber worm, and they always talk about how many fish was in this particular pond, and I'd never done anything, and I just remember I threw a little rubber worm over here in like a little cove, and I just saw my line just take off, it was gone. Snap back, hook the fish, fought for like 5 or 10 minutes, 8.5 pound bass. Oh, snap. Okay. Like, yeah, this is going on the wall. At this time, that was a PB. Came around the pond, came back around to the same space. I threw that thing right back over there again. Same thing happened again. Snag, 9.5 pound bass. Out the same exact hole, the same exact cast. And this was before I was kayak fishing. This is probably like back in I think it was 2008. I think it was. So I kept both of those fish. So I do have those two fish mounted in a massive amount that I got from I got a guy to make like they chasing bait fish. So it's huge, man. And I think that I went back and I measured the inches on them. One of them was like 27, the other was like 26. So in a farm pond. And so I kept them. And I have not mounted a fish since, because now I've learned better. But that was when I didn't know any better. And I was like, man, this is a 9.5 pound fish. So I always told myself I'm not going to mount another fish unless it was double digits. But now I tell myself I wouldn't do that now because I understand. I get it now. Even though it would be very tempting. Then, you catch a 10 pound plus fish to mount them. But I get it. So I do my best to get a good picture. And I got the memory logged.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I always tell myself that if I ever beat my dad's personal best, he's got it mounted that it's somewhere in that 9.5 pound range. If I ever beat that one, I'm going to get a replica made and I'm going to have it mounted in that way. I can't bring myself to kill that size of a fish, but or at least not that size of a bass. There's definitely some out there that are bigger than that I'll keep to eat. But yeah, just because you want to keep those genes in the water, but
right.
But yeah, man. Whenever you're out fishing with somebody, what's your typical conversation centered around? What are you talking about?
Trying to find a fish mostly. I think the last time fishing was Storm, and then most of the time my conversations around that. But then it can just go to anything, from school to family, to different fishing techniques. So I don't have anything. I'm a pretty open book. There's really no subject off limits with me because, like I said, I am who I am. I live my life out loud. And I'm proud of who God has allowed me to be. So I'm usually talking, we'll talk about anything from, politics to, like I said, child rearing, finance. Like I said, I'm pretty spread on, what I know and what I don't know. So there are a number of things I don't know. Those are always the interesting conversation when somebody's talking about something I don't know and I'm inquiring. Ask them more because I want to know more. Well, what about this? And what about that? Because I never know when I'm going to use that information. And that's one thing that's allowed me to connect with so many people is that I know I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. I ain't gonna say I know it. I definitely don't know everything, but I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. And what I find is that that's the way I normally connect to people is, I meet people, I'm going through a list. Well, do you do this or do you do that? I'm looking for a connection. And then from that connection, people have a tendency to relax. And then when they relax, then we can talk. So you talked about bass. Oh, but I know about thumping a bass. I can't play one. But I know about thumping it because my uncles do it.
Right.
So it's kind of like the, what was that story? Was it the Life of Pi? No, not the Life of Pi, but the one where the guy, it's an Indian movie where the guy is playing the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh, Slumdog Millionaire.
Slumdog Millionaire. And you know how that movie, everything he answers is based on something that kind of happened to him? I kid you, that's my life. I kid you not, that's how my life is. I'll meet somebody and it'll be like something that happened to me. Like the kayak, like I said, kayak. Ryan was at my house. He was he was doing his job. We crossed paths on that. He said that. I said that. Oh, opportunity presented itself. I got a kayak. Oh, this is wonderful. I mean, that's how people, golf and chess and all these other things. It's literally have been situations like the Slumdog Millionaire. It's just I happen to be into something, and it just kind of worked out. I don't know, how old you are, but I don't know if you remember this one TV show that used to come out called the Quantum Leap. And that's one of my favorite shows of all time. And I always felt that my life is like the Quantum Leap, and I'm Sam Beckett, and that I leap from situation to situation. Literally, I really do believe that. And my life, I'm a fixer. That's one of the things I do. I do the hard stuff. I'm a foundation guy. I go in there and we change stuff and get it going. And when we get it going, as soon as I think I'm about to enjoy it, I leave and I'm in another situation. And now, I spend all my time trying to figure out, okay, why am I in this one? And as soon as I figure that out, yes, we're going, and I'm gone again. And I can show you that throughout my whole career. in my jobs and in my life and other things and other people and other places and situations that it's become, that Sam Beckett type deal. So Quantum Leap, if you haven't watched it, I know I'm aging myself, but that awesome. It's an awesome story. I think it's on Netflix now.
Yeah, I've definitely seen this show. I didn't watch it like new episodes coming out. It may have been on TV while I was old enough to watch it, but it wasn't until about 10 years ago that it came on like reruns on a TV show, a TV network or something, that I sat down and watched it. But yeah, that is a good show. But yeah, man. So with every guest, we always do a segment called "What's Your Favorite." It's self-explanatory. I'm going to ask your favorite in a few different categories. But to start us off, man, what is your favorite scripture?
The world's favorite scripture, John 3:16, right? For God loved the world that He gave the Holy Spirit. So whosoever believes in Him should not perish, but should have everlasting life, right? That one, and then of course the Matthew 4:19, that He'll make you fishers of men. My name is Peter. I don't think that's by accident.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah, I always refer to John 3:16 as the thesis statement of the Bible. That's how I've always viewed it. What about a particular story from the Bible? Is there one of those that's your favorite?
I lean a lot on that whole, I call it like the trilogy from Abraham down to Isaac. I just think that whole lineage of back in Genesis is just interesting. How God, gives Abraham, Isaac, and then Isaac begin, he doesn't kill him, and Jacob does all the things trying to get, Rachel, and ends up with Leah, and then he has all these sons, and now you have all these tribes, and a lot of people miss that. It's a very, very rich story. And now you got the tribe of Judah, and from Judah, which is, if I recall correctly, I think that was like his last son by the original Leah wife, which is a very interesting thing, because remember, he didn't want her to begin with, but she ends up having the lineage of Jesus Christ through the tribe of Judah, right? From Jesse to David to Ben. I mean, it's just nuts when you start to look at that. It's like, oh, that's great. He didn't even want her, but it ended up being the lineage of Jesus Christ, which was like her last son. That's nuts, right? But when he wanted, then it's still special because he has Joseph, and Joseph saves them, and he brings them to Egypt, and that's how they get to Egypt, and then they get exiled because of, you just start bringing out it. I love that part, man. So that whole little, it's not one story. It's just that one little caveat of how they even get to Egypt. So from, Abraham start in his walk with, his wife, at the time, Sarai, I think it's the Bible calls her, until, they get to Egypt when, Joseph brings them into Egypt to save them. I just like that whole stretch, man. I just get so much out of it every time I read it.
And I've fallen in love with Esau. Just that story of, him having his birthright stolen from him, and Jacob running away in fear. And then whenever they finally do get back together, it's not it's an embrace. Like, Esau's happy to see him and has forgiven him. And I've recently fallen in love with that part of that particular story.
Well, what's always interesting me about that story is the father's role in that, right? How it's like he's feeling him, he's feeling like a deer hair. I'm like, how does a deer hair feel like anything like, how she dresses him up, right? To be like he's Esau. And I never got that part. I was like, man, this is before wigs, man. So what are they using? Sheep, lamb wool.
Yeah. I'm a hairy dude, but nobody can walk up and feel a deer thinking they're feeling me.
That's what I'm saying. So that's the whole part that always kind of gets me. That I get it. He's pretty much blind, right? Right. So I get that part. And I guess maybe, I can smell the outside. As my wife said, you smell like outside, So maybe I can get that part. But, how you touching somebody, I just, that part is what gets me. But, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah,
that story, that is a story of, embracing redemption. And then the whole thing of with Jacob being the trickster, how even out of him being a trickster, but then God brings births this whole nation through him, man, and changes his name and knocks his hip out of place and all this kind of stuff. And so you think when he goes through all this stuff, and and he gets tricked for being a trickster, and he gets the. Well, I'm thinking, well, shoot, man, you got good. Look at the trick you got, man. You had 2 wives. It was having babies by everybody. Matter of fact, remember he has babies by the maid too, right? So I think people forget that part. They just always talking about Rachel and Leah. But remember, she got, okay, I can't do it, so you just go in and you sleep with the maid. These guys were just getting hard. You see what I'm saying? So think about, he has a couple of kids by the maid too. Most people don't realize that. They don't think about that part. Some of his kids were the maid kids. Go back and read it. It says that. And then he went with the maid servant, and he had this one and this one and this one.
Yeah.
Just like his granddad at that point, right? Because he had different Ishmael.
Yeah, Ishmael. That's right. All right. So what is your favorite fish to catch?
I like catching stripers. It's something about the striped bass, man. I like. I don't get to catch a bunch of them. They're so heavily regulated, and I get it. But the striper, dude, you ever get one hit, man? It's just, yeah. I like striped bass. I've never caught a big one. I've always caught the 17, 18 inch, where you can take home and fry them up or whatever. But you don't fry them; you want to bake those. But I do like the striper though.
Okay.
The striper is a good fish to catch. Obviously bass. Because bass do all the action, but that striper, that's a man's fish.
And what about your favorite fish to fish for?
Obviously, the bass. Crappie plays a close second, but the thing about crappie, once you find them, I mean, you just they just all there. So you just gonna keep getting them. Versus a bass, they'll just. Sometimes they'll fool you. They'll be in places you don't think they were going to be at. I'll never forget, earlier this year, when we fished CCKA, it was as hot as I don't know what in July. How July is in North Carolina. And I could feel the steam coming off that lake. And I was in like 2 foot of water. And I had already pretty much given up. And I threw a jig up under this tree in like 2 foot of water. And I just said, something didn't feel right about that. And I just set the hook. Like a 7 to 8 pound bass comes out of the water in 2 foot of water. And everybody said the water like 80, 90 degrees. Why is he in 2 foot of water? Up under this one little, it's not even a shade tree, it was just like a little tree that's hanging over the water. He was under there. And I just happened to just pitch a little jig under there. And boop. So that's the thing about bass, they do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And they get 40 foot of water too. And then you're like, well, why is he out here? It'll be a little one. At 40 foot of water, it's like, dude, you're trying to be lunch out here at 40 foot. So that's the thing about them, man. They always surprise you.
Absolutely. And what about your favorite fish to eat?
I'm a flounder guy. I do not eat freshwater fish except the stripe. But he's technically a saltwater fish.
Right.
We just don't do it. When I say we in general, we don't do a good job with our freshwater fisheries. The fertilizers and all this stuff. I've caught fish with sores and all kinds of stuff in them. And so I just believe in, the salt water does do something to help the fish. So I'm a saltwater guy when it comes to fish. Freshwater, I catch them all day, catch and release. But I do not partake. When I was younger, I did, but, and I don't eat catfish at all.
Okay. All right. And since we're talking about food, what's your favorite fish and snack?
Man, I'm a candy guy. I told y'all that. I take them sweet tarts, man. I need to stop eating those things. I know it's just straight sugar tablet. The little hard one, straight sugar tablet. I would sit there and I would crush, I don't know how many packs of those things out there on the wall. Because they're easy to put in your pocket, just pop it in your, like a tab, and a couple of seconds gone, and you're doing it again and again and again. So I might do a bunch of sweet tarts most of the time.
All right. And so I won't ask for GPS coordinates or secret spots or anything, but what's your favorite body of water to fish?
Well, like I said, GPS, I'm not into that. I mean, fishing to me, this is like a release point for me. So I don't care about that, man. If you catch a fish there, you catch a fish there. I'm not one of those guys. Right now, I'm stuck between two bodies. I really like Jordan, even though it's a little bit of dry. But I've had a lot of success on High Rock Lake, and it's growing on me, which is not that far from me either. So they both about the same. I've cashed every time, as they say, knock on wood. I've cashed every time I've fished High Rock Lake. I made my first check on High Rock Lake with Queen City last year. I mean, I had a phenomenal day. Never fished it before. First time I went there was that day. And then we had they did that $1,000 an hour bass back in December. I caught the first $1,000 bass at High Rock. I only went to High Rock because it was closest to my house. That was the main reason. That was why I went. So that's the closest. I just go out there. I didn't pay my money. It's December, and I think maybe 8 casts in, I pull in like a 6-pounder off a crankbait.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm stuck between those two. So Jordan or High Rock, like I said, High Rock, I would say Jordan, but High Rock is definitely growing on me.
Absolutely. And I don't want you to give away too many secrets, but what's your favorite lure to throw?
I love a spook, man. I got on that spook last year, and that thing was money, man. A sexy dog. My buddy of mine told me, I bought it last year to fish Harris. He said, "Oh, throw this in the wintertime." And I didn't do anything on it. And I started messing around with it last year. I caught an 8-pounder off of it last year in May. And I started doing that. So every year I've had a thing that I try to teach myself one new lure. That, and I fish a jig probably 75% of the time though. I'm a big fish guy. If I'm going to go, I'm swinging for the fence every time, man. And so that's why I don't think I'm trying to balance the two. Because when I'm looking at my tournament numbers, as I look on Tourney X, I mean, I was averaging 17 inches. So I'm catching big fish. I'm just not catching enough of them.
Right.
Now I got to figure that part out. So
yeah, I'm definitely going to have to pick your brain at some point on fishing that jig. I haven't gotten in with.
I started 2 years ago. I told myself exactly what I'm telling you. I was going to learn how to do it. I just went out the whole day. I do nothing but that. That's really how I learned them. Do nothing but that. And I finally got bit maybe 6 hours in. And I was like, oh, that's all this is. And after that point, last year, like I said, I caught, especially at Lake Jordan. I think every time I went, I never won the tournament, but I always caught a big fish out there. And that's what I was saying. We had the CCKF final there. I had big fish. He was on the front of my bow. And he got stuck. I never the whole year I never fished with a motor. And I got me the spot lock motor. And I'm gonna use this to do is like cover water. Because like I said, my problem is I'm catching fish, just not enough of them. So I'm gonna cover all this water. And sure enough, I think it was a slow day. So if you would have caught a limit, you was gonna win. I think Matthew, shout out to Matthew. Matthew won that, right? And I think the fish he ended up bringing in for big fish was like 19 inches. I had every bit of 24. And again, on the jig, had him. Fish came out. I'm fighting him. I think I'm about to give him the boat. He runs to the front of the bow. As he runs to the front of the bow, he wraps around the trolling motor. Only time I've ever fished with the trolling motor. Ever. And I can see him. He's out the water like this and his tail. I'm a big guy. The water's freezing cold. Don't want to end up in this water. The fish is on this. I got to pull the motor up. Let's try to see if I can get it off. So I'm like, man, what I'm going to do? And I'm about like 9 foot of water. but I'm close enough to shore. So if I hit this water, I can get out, fairly quickly. So I'm like, so I start to lay over and I'm pulling up to the side to pull the thing off. And as I finally get it up, somehow he came off. And that fish, I mean, when you see a fish whose tail was big as your hand, I was like, I knew every bit I had him. And I think that day, like I said, I don't think nobody caught a limit. Because it was that, it was one of those days, man.
Right.
Yeah, so the jig has been good to me. Like I said, I'm not one of those ones. It's kind of like, I think about things like this when people talk about hiding stuff. You put a golf club in my hand or Tiger Woods' hands. You can give me his golf club and tell me how to do everything, but I ain't gonna be able to swing it like him. He has the talent and skill, and he's put forth that effort. So I can tell you exactly where to go and exactly what to do. Don't mean you're gonna catch the fish, because there's other things you got to do. So that's me. I know everybody don't subscribe to that. So like I said, I'm an open book, man. I just want to have fun and enjoy life. It ain't that serious to me. I don't fish for the money. I fish for the competition. The money's a byproduct.
All right. And now that all of our hearts are broken from your big one that got away story.
Yeah, right.
Not least, what's your favorite time of year to fish?
Actually, I'm a summer guy. Right when it's 100 million degrees. I've had my most success, and I look over the years and I look over my tourney eggs. I've killed them in the middle of the summer. And I think I know why. Because as growing up, I was always told you want to fish in the summer. So I learned how to fish. I learned how to fish in the summer. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got into kayak fishing that I even fished in the winter. Benny had us out there at Lake James, and it was like 30 degrees. And the water was like 31 degrees. And in fact, you see the smallmouth that's jumped out. That was a smallmouth I caught at Lake James in 30 degrees of water. Never caught fish in that kind of cold water. So that's why the fall, I was always in a tree stand. I was told, I grew up in one of those areas. Oh, it's too cold to fish. Mm-hmm. So all these things that I found out I was always told are absolutely wrong. Oh, you don't fish in the rain. Absolutely. I want to go when it's raining now. Oh, it's too windy. I absolutely want to be out there when it's windy now. But these are all things I told, that they had to be perfect. My father wanted to be a little bit cool, still water, everything that we do wet, that you don't normally catch fish in. And I think that's why I sail in the summer, because that's how I learned how to catch them in the worst condition ever. But in their mind, because the way they were taught from other people was, these were the best days to go fishing, when it was nice and sunny and the water was calm. Which we all know what, it's the worst time to go.
Absolutely. And I think another thing is, a lot of, throughout your career, you worked at a school where you were off in the summer. So that's whenever you got to put in the time on the water. And all fishermen always say time on the water that's how you get good at it. So I think that has a lot to do with it too.
You're very, very true. But the winter is starting to get there. I just don't like the cold, but I am starting to favor this winter fishing, because I've caught some. When I started, the biggest fish I have caught have been in the winter.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, we're going to start wrapping things up. If you would, let us know what is coming up next for Dr. Peter Eley.
Ooh, just grinding, man. Working with our church, and just working to continue to be able to help people and help them find their level in Christ and find what it is that they ask them to do. We work off this mantra in our church. We call it DEA, discipleship, empowerment, and accountability. I'm going to help you. I'm going to empower you, but I'm going to hold you accountable. So that's really where we are on the fishing side. My goal this year is to, I would like, Queen City got some real hammers in there, man. They got some guys. I need to break. I broke the top 10 last year. Like I said, I cashed out in one of the tournaments last year there. But obviously you like to win one. But to me, again, it ain't about the money. It's competition. I do well. God has blessed me. But it's about the competition. And I would like to make the Tournament of Champions there. That would be nice. Again, I got the competition because, to be honest, the way the Tournament of Champions is set up, I probably won't even make it to fish it because they fish on Sundays and I don't do Sundays, So that'll be one of the ones. If I made it, I know I made it, but I'll probably get my spot up unless my church say, no, you go. But that's one of the things I want to do, from, on the fishing side. And as far as, at work, just continue to help, our kids. Our kids need help. We dealing with this pandemic. There are some significant losses. There are some significant gains. And to be able to help teachers and community leaders find out what those losses and gains are for their communities and try to get our kids back in position. And as they say, so to speak, back on track to help them finish what they were working on, and that they can be productive citizens in our society going forward.
Absolutely. And I want to give you an open floor for, you've got sponsors or supporters, anybody you want to say thank you to, all those kinds of shout outs, you go for it.
So at the time, I do not have any sponsors, but I've been trying. But if anybody wants to sponsor Peter Eley, please, by all means, do so, because I sponsor a lot of you all. But no, I really do. I don't know how many casting rods I own. Casting, yes, I own several. Right down the street in Sanford. I go down there. I go in the store and buy them. $20, $50 a piece. But they make great equipment. I fish a lot of the True South jigs. True South, yeah. Their jigs, he do make good jigs, man. I got to get to him. His jigs are just phenomenal. I don't even want to buy them out of the store. I just want to buy his. That maybe that's what it is. His jigs are good. Also, Kayak Fishing with Christ. Those are my brothers on the water. I really have come to be very fond of that group. Santiago, Kent Vanover, all those guys. Many of them I've never met. I met Kent, Santiago. He did one of their gatherings here in North Carolina last year. I met him and Dave. But great group of guys doing a great work for Christ through kayak fishing. So I really love that group. Really, those are my brothers on the water. So I want to give a shout out to Kayak Fishing with Christ. So if you're interested, it's an open group, and you can just reach out to them on Facebook and ask to be a part and come on and fish with us. And we fish, monthly tournaments every month on that. And I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, my wife and my kids for allowing me to go and do what I do and enjoy this time. And to you for reaching out to me. I've listened to your podcast in the past and, bought some of the products. I think the Saver. So I bought Saver. So I bought a couple of them. Yeah, he tried to convince me to put them on my rods. Now I have a hard time putting it on those cashings, man. I just don't want to cut them. I'm like, oh no. But I haven't used them yet, but I bought them. I got it. I spent, like I said, I sponsor a lot of people. I spent almost $100. I got 2 or 3 of them. But I hadn't put them on anything because my kayaks stay wet so much, so I'm concerned about that. It's one of those things. You know how it works. If it's wet, it's gonna do its thing, which I think would be phenomenal. But as much as as wet as my yak stays, I don't know. That's probably my main reason I did it. And I think that's pretty much it. So I do like using a lot of mom and pop stuff. So if you're a mom and pop guy, you need somebody to use it. Oh, Bless Vet Baits, new guy I just met out of Creedmoor. He swears he has the best buzz bait on the market. I'm not much of a buzz bait guy, but I'm going to definitely start throwing it when it warms up a little bit, and to see if that's true, because I know that True South V-twin buzz bait is a rattle trap, buddy. That thing makes a lot of noise. So want to give a shout out to him, and like I said again, a shout out to you, Faith and Fishing podcast. And that you all, and if you get the opportunity to go to my podcast, The Gospel Professor, .podbean.com. I think we're up to 800 podcasts roughly on there. They're all messages of hope and deliverance, all 100% free. And like I said, I've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now off the Podbean platform, gospelprofessor.podbean.com. And just, you can get you something to listen to build your faith. Again, thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm just blessed to be here, and I'm blessed that you thought enough of me to invite me, and I want to hear my story.
Absolutely, man. And before I let you go, what about social media and if our listeners want to follow you, learn more about you, I think you mentioned a website earlier. Plug all of that good stuff too.
All right, so professional website is drpetereley.com, and that's where you'll see all my professional stuff. And then I need to update that. Then the church is the Safehouse Church GSO, the Safehouse Church GSO.com. You'll find us there, or you can just Google Safehouse Church GSO. The SH should pop up. And then social media, just usually my name. I just do a little bit of everything on there. I'm not branding or none of that kind of stuff. I just enjoy people, enjoy serving the community. So you'll see on my Facebook, you'll see us talking about a little bit of everything on there. My Instagram is mainly me on bow ties. I wear a bow tie every Friday. That's my thing. So Fridays, I call them bow tie Fridays. And I found that people have been emailing me, and a number of people I've connected with all around the world. They said, they look forward to the Bow Tie Friday. So I was like, wow, you never know what little thing you're doing. I just did it as a whim, as kind of a salute to a friend of mine who passed away. He used to wear a bow tie every day. And I was like, I just wear one every Friday for the whole academic year. And that's kind of how that started. And now it's become like this little thing that it's a whole group of us who do it. These big time doctors, they got the blue check beside their name. I don't have a check beside my name. They follow me because we're doing it. They wear their bow ties in their, their doctor offices and stuff. So on Twitter, that's, again, Dr. Peter Eley, just Dr. Peter Eley on Twitter. Like I said, mainly my stuff on Twitter is, pretty much professional stuff, and the Bow Tie Friday. On Instagram and on Twitter. And that's pretty much, it on the social media. Oh, I do have a YouTube channel that is Find and Fish. And on the Find and Fish YouTube channel, you'll find that I've been touring with teaching people what I'm doing on the water and showing that thing. So I am out there. Like I said, I'm easy to find. Just Google my name and click away and have fun.
Awesome. Well, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show. I have thoroughly enjoyed this one. I am really looking forward to getting this one out there, man.
Thank you, and I hope in the past, and I hope I ain't talked too much. I told you I was a preacher, so that means you need to shut me down. So, but thank you, and thank you to your family for allowing us to have this time to talk tonight.
We appreciate that, man. Thank you. Atollas, based out of Charleston, South Carolina, is an eyewear accessory and gear company focused on enhancing your time on the water. Their floating sunglass retainers are the most technically advanced around. Over 5 years of engineering, testing, and exhaustive feedback from paddlers, anglers, and watermen have resulted in a patented design in a class of its own. They're incredibly light and comfortable, built for durability, sport a sleek, minimal design, float virtually all brands and models of sunglasses, and they're backed for life. So if you break them, Atollas will replace them. No questions asked. Whether you're fishing, kayaking, or boating, Atollas will save your shades from the dream. Head on over to atollas.co to check out their gear and use promo code faithnfish15. That's faith, the letter N, fish, the number 1, 5 at checkout to save 15% on your order. Another huge thank you to Dr. Eley for coming on the show and getting down and dirty into college, student ministry, mathematics, fishing, and of course faith. I'll leave all of Peter's links in the show notes so that you can follow his adventures, as well as links to the Tacticam Fish Eye camera, the All Things Faith and Fishing link, so that you can see the website, the merch store, all of the sponsor links, including Where to Get Everybody Always by Bob Goff. And I will also leave that link to the autism campaign from That Bass Fishing Dude. So yeah, that is going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless. Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by me, Cam Steele, and is sponsored by Jade's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Savior Outdoors, Atollas, and Mr. B Lure Company. Be sure to give us a rating and a review and to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care and God bless.